Welcome back to the Quip Corner. I'm your host for today, Alba. I'm her son, and today we're just going to be talking to her about books. As you know, it's World Book and Copyright Day, and today we're just going to kind of like delve deep into some things book related and potentially copyright related. So, Mother, how are you?
I'm well.
It's good. Um, and how do you feel about books? How do you feel about today as a day for recognition for books and copyright?
So those are two questions all in one.
That's
I
fine.
should just
You can
answer what I want. Okay. I love books. I don't read as much as I used to, or maybe I should, but I love books because they are a collection of another person's thoughts.
Okay.
So it's like um, books are one way people share a part of themselves with others.
Mm-hmm.
So I like books. I didn't know about World Book and Copyright Day until after I became an author and started finding out that, people actually celebrate books, celebrate copyright, and it's great that with all the work authors put into writing books, as with a lot of other things people do, it's nice to know that there's a day to celebrate books and copyright.
Now, you said that you became an author, and that's when you kind of found out about Book and Copyright Day. When you started to publish books, can you just kind of talk us through your publishing kind of experience? You don't have to go into like too much detail, but what that experience was like for you and how it kind of opened your eyes, in relation to copyright and everything.
Ooh. One of the things that struck me, excuse me, when I was publishing my first book was how much my publisher wanted to be sure that the content was original.
Okay.
And so when, in the initial stage where they were trying to see whether I'll be a good fit for them and vice versa, they said, okay, what kind of book have you written? So with my first book, what kind of book have you written? And so I explained to them, it's a book of quips and quotes. And I was like, okay, whose quotes? So I said, no, they're all original quotes, all original quips. It's not anything that anybody else said that I am repurposing. Because there are books like that where people, have a collection of famous sayings and things like that. But my books are all original quips and quotes based on my personal experience. So just going through that, what do they call it, assessment stage with my publisher, and for the subsequent books I still had to go through that, was one thing. And then the second thing was, because I like pictures, I'm a visual learner, my books also have pictures in them. And so once again, my publisher was like, okay, where did you get these pictures from? And I had to, thankfully there are websites where you can get free images. So I had to send them the links to each of the pictures. In fact, in one of my books, well, maybe now more than one, but I remember specifically in one of my books, there's a picture of your daddy and I, and then there's a picture of my friend, Auntie Chinyere, and her husband.
Okay.
Yeah? And so they were like, okay, where did you get this? And I said, used by permission, because I made sure, even though she's been my friend for decades, I sent her a note and I said, okay, I need it. It needs to be official. It needs to be official that I can use this image. So, those were the things that made me realize how important copyright is.
I guess still on that topic, are there any tips or suggestions to up and coming authors to kind of look out for in terms of, like, you've already mentioned some, and like looking at making sure that you're able to cite the sources in which you're getting your information from, whether it's the pictures or the quotes if you're recycling quotes. But are there any other things outside of those kind of copyright areas that go into publishing that up and coming authors could, benefit from?
I think the first thing to remember is, as an up and coming author, you are up and coming. Because sometimes you see someone who's an established author and you want to get from 0 to 20 at one go. Be patient with yourself. Recognize that it takes time, it takes process. You bake, right? So, well, you don't just bake, you cook, and you know that there's a process. So you can't say, oh, well, because of this delicious banana bread, which is, you tried it several times and then you finally, So same thing with writing a book. I'm not saying that you need to write several books and fail at them, but recognize that it takes a process of refining. And another tip is have people around you that you trust who will give you honest feedback. If you write something, I mean, now I do it with the family. I mean, as an example, God has given me the opportunity to contribute to an anthology. And when I was writing those poems, I got feedback from the family and I was like, okay, does this even make sense? So get people that, they don't have to be family members, but your family members are a good sounding board to say, okay, does this even make sense? So being patient with yourself, having the right people around you, those are some of the things that would help you. Because as an author, there'll be times you would be discouraged. But having those people around you could just give you that gentle nudge. No, you can do it. You can do it. You can do it, and get you across the finish line. So, yeah.
So you mentioned that you are making an anthology with poems.
Yeah.
So
I'm contributing.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm contributing.
So it's not okay. But what for you is something up and coming for you? What's new? What's coming up? What can people hope to expect in the near future?
Ooh. I'm hoping and praying that I can publish my poetry book or books. I've written them. I'm just praying for right publishing pricing, right? So that's one of the things that's holding me up. But I'm still marketing my current books. So I really need more sales, please.
They're on Amazon.
Yeah, but you can actually buy them from me to get the autographed copies.
That's true.
Yes. And that pays me more than buying them on Amazon or Barnes and Noble, Books A Million. They're available wherever good books are sold. And the images are right behind me. This is the first book I was talking about. And the thing about being an author, before I go back to what's up and coming, is sometimes after the first one, sometimes it gets easier. That's you grow through the process. So I'm hoping that I can publish my book of poetry sooner than later, but who knows? And then I have a few manuscripts for 101 quips and quotes too. So growing that collection.
Now more onto a little bit more fun questions. So on the topic of books, what's the most interesting book that you've read recently?
Leading Change by John Carter. It's interesting because it's a book that talks about change. Change is the constant in life. So it's not just about what I'm dealing with, say, in my career, in my professional life, but even in family life, just dealing with change and leading change. I'm a change management practitioner. I've taken a course, but it's nice to get that refresher. So yeah, I think that's an exciting book I've read recently. I enjoyed it, and I'm going to read it again.
Yeah. Do you actually? I'm gonna ask the question about what you just said. So, how often do you reread books?
Ooh, not very often.
Okay, and why is that?
Because there's so many other books to get to.
Fair enough. I agree, but fair enough.
There's so many other books to get to,
Yeah.
but there are also some books where I've read and then I want to read as a refresher. So one book that I'd like to read again is Who Moved My Cheese?
Okay.
You know, Who Moved My Cheese? The Go Giver. That's another book I'd like to reread. So there are a couple books, but I'm almost like I have this stack
Yeah.
of TBR. You
Yeah.
know, like to be read
To be
TBR.
read, yeah. But
Yeah.
like the new ones
I have some old books.
that are in that.
Yes,
Okay.
so it's almost like, okay, let me get through the stack, then maybe I'll go reread some other things. But yeah, there's only so much time.
Now, with the books that you do generally read, how does like the writing style or the genre affect how you write your books?
The books that I read or have read that I'd say influenced my writing style the most are books by Miles Monroe of blessed memory, John Mason, John Maxwell, and Mike Murdoch.
Okay.
And the reason why these books have influenced my writing style is there were a lot of memorable comments in them. You know, you'd read something and then it sticks.
Okay.
So that's what my quips are. My quips are short and sweet. They're witty. There's humor in some of them, but really, as you think on them, they stick with you. I remember someone who bought my first book said that she had kept the copy on her desk, and now and again people would come and pick the book up. It's almost like, okay, let me just pick one thing and run with it.
Yeah.
And then they'd come back, and then another time they're like, let me see if I can find something else. And as God would have it, I've gotten that feedback from more than one person. I know someone who said that she uses it with her morning coffee.
Okay.
It's almost like, okay, a pick me up for the day. So yeah, those authors influenced my writing, and yeah.
So now, would you say that your style or like mode of delivery has changed over time as you've been writing? For example, let's just say that earlier on you were writing more short, like haiku kind of poems or quips, but now you're writing into longer things or more like story wise.
Stepping into the poetry space.
Yeah.
And that in itself has been an interesting journey, because when Bruce read my book, Bruce Randall, someone that I really respect, he read my first book. Once again, he said to me, "Ada, you should be writing poems," and I was like, "Ha, indeed." But I guess who knew?
Yeah.
You never know what you have within you until you start. So.
Do you think that comment has changed your outlook on like the delivery of ideas? Because poetry isn't just limited to rhyme schemes and everything, right? Do you think that comment has changed how you've outlook on just the delivery?
Not really. I can't really pinpoint, draw a straight line between those two things. But I just find that it's paradoxical that comment is the kind of thing I say to other people.
No. Yeah. Yeah.
And then someone says it to me, I'm like, huh?
Yeah.
Talking to me? So, yeah.
That's good. what genres do you tend to gravitate towards when you're reading? And then I guess you can answer what genres you gravitate towards when you're writing. But we'll start with reading.
Um, I like to read leadership books.
Okay.
Yeah. And I'm not very good. Well, I mean, when I say leadership books, they need to be short and sweet. I mean, not short, but I don't read fat books. They just, which may be why I write quips. Short and sweet. I also like to read faith-based books. When I think about genres, it's almost like it's the title that will determine if it pulls me in.
Okay.
So I try not to judge a book by its cover or its title, but sometimes I'm drawn in by the title.
Okay.
And then maybe by my need. Sometimes I find a book that speaks to what it is I'm going through at that time, and I'm like, okay, I'd like to lean into this and learn some more.
Okay. And then for writing, what genres do you typically end up writing about or writing for?
I don't understand your question.
So, like, example, you said faith-based books are some genres that you like to read. Like in your poems, in your quips, are they directed more at faith, or are they directed more at leadership, or are they directed more at something else?
They're directed at life.
Okay.
And for me, they show up in different ways. There's some of my quips that you'd read and you'd see the faith thread. There's some that you'd read, as an example, my fifth book on counting is, I also call it the workbook. So in that book, I have 3 sections: as an individual contributor, as a team member, and as a leader. Actually, I start with leadership. So leadership, individual contributor, team member. So it talks about work, it talks about leadership, it talks about teamwork, so it's all blended in. If you look at my 4th book, it's one that's general about living an amazing life. My 3rd book is geared towards
teenagers,
the young ones,
the youth.
Yes, the youth, tweens, teens, and 20s. I remember the feedback I got from a member of my family when I wrote it, and I said, "Can you, review this?" And the person said, he said to me, "You sound too much like an adult." So I had to tone it down. My 2nd book is focused on marriage and family relationships. And then this first one, similar to the 4th book, is general, changing your world, changing your life. So, yeah.
Well, thank you for this wonderful interview. I hope everybody got a lot out of that. I hope everybody goes and gets themselves a copy. And if you already have a copy, why not get another one for a friend? She'll probably do the outro. So, thank you.
Well, thank you for taking the time to ask me all those questions. You could have given me a hint of some of those questions, so I could have been better prepared. But it's all good. It's all good.
So it makes an interview fun.
Okay. I'm good with that. But thanks again for joining us in the Quip Corner. And I look forward to reading your comments to this. And like he said, and I said, you can get copies of my books. The link would be below this. Autographed copies, I think they're the best. But the link will be below this. And I look forward to doing life with you. God bless you.
God bless you.
Bye now.
Bye. See, that's what I'm saying.
Welcome.
No, don't. That's what I say. Like, if you want